The Last Blockbuster on Netflix. It's
What's
awesome.
that?
It is a documentary about the last actual Blockbuster in existence, and they go into like how Blockbuster actually fell apart, how it went down, how these people are staying around, and they actually talk to the family of the last Blockbuster people who are like keeping it alive. And it's really cool. It's like an hour and a half. They talk to all these like they talk to Doug Benson and Kevin Smith and all these like industry people about game stores and videos and stuff like that. And so it kind of plays on the nostalgia to it too. But me and Melissa watched it earlier today, and it was fantastic. Just really fun.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out at some point.
Yeah, it was really good, and it's cool too because it's like you don't realize you miss video stores until you think about it, you know? And then like that's what they go into is this kind of like weird nostalgia for them, as well as like the story of this like one lady named Sandy who runs the Blockbuster and just trying to keep it alive, basically.
I mean, honestly, the only thing I really get nostalgic for is not spending like $5 to rent a digital version of a movie that pretty much self-destructs, but
Right. Right. I liked it because like when I was a younger adult before digital had become big, I lived across the street from a Blockbuster. And like it was always nice when my significant other wasn't home and I was home alone and didn't have anything to do. I could just walk across the street and just like there was just loads of entertainment. It was like walking into a game store with $100, you know?
yeah.
It's like, what am I going to walk out with? I would walk out with like 3 kung fu movies. I'd bring them home. I'd watch them. I'd walk them back at 3 a.m. Like, it was nice. It was just nice. That was what I would say nostalgia was for. I don't necessarily want them back, but it's still a really fun documentary. Like, a really fun, lighthearted documentary to watch. I thought, anyway.
I don't know. I think I'd like them back personally.
You'd like them back personally? I mean...
Yeah.
It's one of those things where like I was talking to Phil because Phil really hates that like movie theaters are dying because like
Yeah.
it's like his date night is movie theaters, and like I hate movie theaters. I've hated movie theaters for a while now. I don't like it used to be me and Melissa's date night too, but just like getting there on time and like 97 hours of previews, and then you always pee and you miss something, and you always have to roll the dice as to whether somebody's talking, you know. And like, so I love that movies have started to like stream at home because I'd much rather just like watch them on day one from my house on HBO Max. I'm totally okay with that. But it's one of those things that like while I like the option of being at home, I don't want to see theaters go away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things where it's like I wish the side effect of getting the thing I like wasn't the death of something that everybody else likes, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I just want the option.
Honestly, the only thing that I don't miss about movie theaters is having to sit next to somebody that's that's like a stranger.
Mm-hmm.
I hate that. Our theater out here last year and a half, 2 years ago, something like that, started doing assigned seating.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
So then you have to like find a way to like strategically buy your tickets, and you're like doing stuff like, okay, there's 2 of us and there's 3 open seats on either side of us. The chances of a group of 3 showing up are slim. So if we pick these 2 seats, chances are we won't have to sit next to somebody. Or like if there's a single seat available, like
Right.
chances are it's not a lone person, and then inevitably one of us gets sat next to the lonely person who's going to watch. You know, it happened with Avengers Endgame when we went to go see that in the theater.
Right. Yeah.
Just like some sad old man who's just sitting there watching this just because it's the new movie, while I have to, you know, silently cry to myself that Iron Man's dead.
There's a theater that we have in Cuyahoga Falls that does that, but it's never crowded. So it'll be like you have to like pick a seat, and then like you go in and there's just nobody in there. It's like, why the fuck did we have to pick a seat? Like, there's nobody
Right.
here. Like, why Why can't that be a thing for Friday nights and not a thing for the whole time? I don't understand.
Right.
Time to get your fix. It's a horrible gaming podcast. It's not good, it's not great. Horrible gaming podcast. It's not even what you would call fair. It's really not that good. Horrible Gaming Podcast.
Hello, my name is Zachariah with Old Man Gaming, and you have decided for whatever reason to tune into another Horrible Gaming Podcast, and we welcome you. And by we, I am not alone. With me is
Neil, aka Tiny Wizard.
And we are back for another episode of Horrible Podcast goodness or badness, depending on your point of view. But before we get into it, just a couple of names to drop. First of all, if you're watching this on YouTube, behind the fancy timestamps, you have noticed some fancy graphics. Anything that I did not collect from stock was created and given to us by Mr. Mark Bell. We thank him for that. And then, of course, the theme song for this and all of the shows here at OMG are provided by the man who makes the music, Nick Van Sliders, and we thank him for that.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, so that brings us to our first segment and probably our most important one. That's fan interaction. What is fan interaction? Well, we talk to you guys, the fans. We read your comments in all the places we can find them. We ask you questions sometimes. We respond to you directly. And we also use your comments to decide the Horrible Arena winners. So we got a lot of Kevin vote. We got a lot of Kevin talking this time. And let's get right into it. Kev Tutal, games must always be bigger and better for the Timmies. Your points are perfectly valid, but they are selling to the masses, and the masses have a bigger is better mindset on the whole. I don't know. What do you think about that, Neil?
I mean, he's right, unfortunately. You know, that's where we are with games now, that it's just everything has to be that next step, that much bigger, you know. And
right.
It sucks, honestly.
It does. I do want to point out, I think some of that is the fault of the industry, though. I think the industry has kind of keyed people to think that bigger is better in a lot of ways. I think if the advertising was, if you were just showing the awesome things about a game instead of like necessarily like pushing the bigger thing, we wouldn't be in the position we are. You know, I think your Rockstars and your Bethesdas kind of put us in this position a little bit by making us feel like, well, if the game is huge, that makes a better game, you know?
Right.
Kev Tutal, Skyrim became huge from the mods market. It sold super well on its own two legs, but the third and fourth life it has enjoyed is from the mods. I know 3 people who have never played more than 10 minutes of vanilla Skyrim, but their Steam account shows hundreds of thousands of hours played. I'm going to give you some of that, Kev. I do think that mods are the smartest thing to come to games, and I do not understand why companies don't make them more prevalently available, like make the systems to make them more prevalently available, because I mean it means people play your game infinitely longer. I don't understand why every game doesn't have a mod package and why every game isn't able to do that both on console and PC. If I was a game designer, that would be number one priority, because then literally you're letting people make you content for free. However, I do think that the mods, while the mods have definitely helped it in the third and fourth life, I still think overall Skyrim keeps getting bought because Skyrim is Skyrim. I don't necessarily think the mods in itself is giving it, you know, a third and fourth wave.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helps.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of almost turns Skyrim into a live service sort of situation.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't call it like a full-on live service game, but I mean, you get you get that steady stream of new content coming out, expansions, entire new towns, pretty much anything you can think of. I'm pretty sure if I remember, one of the first mods that I remember hearing about was like a Dragon Ball Z mod. Like,
I mean, I've never played that, but I have played with the mods on Skyrim quite a lot, and they are awesome. They really breathe new depth in life. One of the coolest mods, I tell you, it is a talking point to talk about mods being used in games. At some point, we're going to have to go into that in depth when we have a slow news week. But one of the mods they put in there, somebody built a better companion mod. So like in Skyrim, you can get these companions that like follow you and help you, but you can only ever have one. And one of the things that sucks is if you're a wizard character, you're kind of at a disadvantage unless you're like a battle mage or something. Like you can't be really a pure wizard by yourself in that game because you just don't have the like health, or the defense. Yeah. That being said, this mod allowed you to have multiple companions, so you could collect like 4 companions and be a wizard and actually put a party together.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Completely. I mean, like, not even just talking about the really cool expansions that people have done, where it's entire worlds that they've added to this game. Just that in itself brings a whole new life to the game,
Yeah.
So moving on, but we should talk about mods at some point in the future, because I especially when, like, even Bethesda blocked a mod for Skyrim where it would allow multiplayer in Skyrim. Why would you ever block a mod? More people will play it, Like, we should talk about mods at some point on this.
I would love a multiplayer Skyrim mod.
Yes, there is one, but it's kind of like low-key on PC. You can get it on PC, you can't get it on console, and Bethesda won't allow it in its mod storefront, which is like, why?
Dumb.
It's dumb, yeah. All right, moving on. Graphics need to look good/nice, not necessarily great. Gameplay will elevate good graphics into a great game. Kev, I can't agree with you more on this one, buddy. Sometimes we argue, but on this one, we're of one mind, my friend. I think that graphics, there's just too much pressure put on companies to create the best-looking game nowadays, No,
absolutely.
Where I would take a Monster Hunter over, a photorealistic, beautiful game any day if it plays better and it gives me more space on the system, Moving on. Outriders. If solo and multiplayer characters are the same, the always online is a part of the anti-cheat and also DRM control. Okay, I guess I see that. Still, I think it's a little bit silly to not have a way for this game to be offline, especially since there is no games as a service real things on here. Like, it would have made so much more sense to have like a Borderlands thing where you could just play it offline. I'm telling you, the server issues probably wouldn't have even happened if that was possible.
Yeah, probably. I mean, this endless need to have some sort of online connection in all games all the time. It's just annoying, honestly, anymore.
Yeah, it is. And I don't understand it. I 100%, like, I understand it when it needs to be there. Like, but it doesn't need to be in Outriders. I've played it for plenty of time now. It does not need to be always hooked up to the internet. And I think that is the sole problem that it's had, is it has to be hooked up in the internet all the time. Moving on, he says, no business shall be conducted on my property. I don't know quite what he is referring to on that one. I'm sure we made some comment and he's talking on it, but I'm not sure in the moment now what he's talking about.
Yeah, I actually saw that one too, and I for the life of me, I have no idea.
And then here we go again. The comment that that won't leave me alone. Not arguing, just clarifying. I didn't mean Halo was going to sink the one at launch. I was comparing the magnitude of the bad calls before launch to the terrible delays around Halo. I don't know that they're comparable. I don't know. Okay, he clarified. I don't want to continue arguing about this. I have my point. I have my mindset. Everybody else has theirs. All right, so that brings us to the horrible arena. And Kev Tutal, and it's all you this week, Neil. All you, buddy. And I knew it was going to be. Nobody wants my fucking game. But Neil says Neil gets my vote this week. And Kayla also chimed in and said Neil gets my vote this week. So you go up by 2, man. You pull away again. It's 15-13 now.
I was really proud of that one.
It was a good pitch, man. It really was a good pitch. Really was a good pitch. Excuse me, everybody. Sorry about that. Okay.
It's okay. My cat just jumped up on my desk here and is literally just manhandling the microphone.
Just swatting it around. Okay. So that's it for fan traction. If you want to move to our first talking point, man.
Sure.
All right.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, so that brings us to our first talking point, and we're going to talk a little bit more about E3, the show that shouldn't be. I didn't even mean to rhyme that. But E3, they're announcing stuff. It definitely seems to be going forward. It's going to be an all-digital showcase, of course. And the big news is Sony is not going to be there, although I'm surprised why everybody thinks this is such big news since they weren't there when it was live. Why would they be there when it's digital? I don't quite understand. But Nintendo and Xbox are on board with E3. Neil, what do you think?
Well, I'm not quite sure what they are doing, honestly, with E3. Yeah, like, I'm down for everybody, kind of collectively jumping back together and making it a more, like, concise, unified event. But, like, they also had just come out, too, and said, oh, yeah, well, 2022 is going to be all in person. And, like,
I did not hear that. That's news to me.
They had reconfirmed, not reconfirmed, but they had said, yeah, 2022 is going to be all in person. And there was also, even before that, rumors floating around that E3 this year was going to have some content paywalled.
What?
Yeah, there was, I think it was rumors or somebody alluded to something along those lines, and like they actually had to officially come out and say, hey, not really. This isn't a thing. We're not doing that, you know.
Okay.
But like, where did that come from in the first place? I mean, we know the internet's good for that sort of stuff, but
I mean, in fairness, E3 has never been a cheap event. I mean, back in the day, you couldn't even get into it. It was just for developers and media. And now people can get into it they could get into it for exorbitant costs to get in. I'm kind of actually surprised that it is going to be all free.
I mean, I don't know. I think we should start with the fact that they are already saying that it's going to be an in-person event next year. Let's be real.
Okay.
Even if the world goes back to normal,
which
in
it's
no
not.
realm. What?
I'm sorry, which it's not. I was.
Oh, I thought you said, wait, stop.
No. No, I was adding to your point. We're never going to get back to normal. Like, that's just a fact of nature. Like, it's going to get better. It's definitely going to get better. It already has gotten better. We're going to places and stuff, but we're going to be wearing masks for the next 5-10 years of our lives. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the way it is. Like, the impact of this, we're going to be seeing it for years and years to come, you know?
Yeah, and for them to come out and say that next year's event is going to be in person, I don't think that you're going to be able to rein everybody back in when they've all, I mean, as we've already said, Sony's already jumped ship. And they are probably never coming back unless they are dragged back for whatever reason that may be.
Well, and they jumped ship before COVID ever was a thing.
Right. So I can't imagine that in 2022 they're going to be able to make E3 be what it was before.
Right. I mean, the real problem I have here is I felt like E3 was kind of being mismanaged before COVID. And now we're at a point where like how do people who were mismanaging it before a global pandemic manage it in a global pandemic and coming out of a global pandemic? You know what I mean? Like, I just don't see that kind of thing. That the other thing that really bothers me about the digital event, I mean, well, you wanted to start on the live event first. Let's start on the live event first. 2022, exactly how you said, like, okay, they're bringing it back to live. What does that look like? How does that happen? And like you said, even if it's all normal, who is going to show up to that thing?
Right.
You know, like, and again, E3 is notorious for being unprepared for too many people, being unprepared for developers, for being unprepared for other things. You know what I mean? They're notorious for not preparing properly for things. You definitely, like, I mean, hopefully the global pandemic has really subsided by the time we get to 2022. But you don't want to see like another wave come out of that fucking thing. Are they even going to be prepared for that? You know?
Right.
Or is it just going to be another like cesspool of COVID stuff, like every other huge meeting point, like spring break and the Republican National Convention and all the other places where that like caused the big waves? You know, like, are we going to have that again from E3? Like, I don't want that, you know?
Right. And I feel like if they were to jump the gun right now, because they'll just make themselves look stupid if in, let's say, 7 months from today, they decide, well, we actually are going to have to backtrack on that.
Right.
And E3 is going to be all digital again. We know we said, but we're sorry, you know, things happen. Like, at that point, that's your fault because you were just trying to plan about what the world was going to be like a year from now.
Right. It goes back to, you know, the same thing that game companies do when they early advance announce things and they give you stuff 3 years before. Like, you can't possibly promise that. You can't possibly say that that's going to be the way it is because it's too far away from where you have to be. You haven't even gotten this one done. Why are you talking about the next one?
Right.
But I do want to transition to this one if you're okay with that.
Sure.
What is this one going to be? What nightmare is this going to be? Like, I don't understand how they're going to be able to pull this off, personally. And again, I can't say this enough. The best part of E3, other than the whole, you know, press conference versus thing, I mean, in a way you can still get that, you know, because you could still have, like, the trailer party, you know. But the thing that E3 did really well is, while I am on record as criticizing a lot of game critics out there as not doing their job properly, still, they are the people who tell us whether the games are good or bad or if they have concerns about it or whatever. They're the ones that allow us to gauge what we should be looking at or excited for. Without them in the mix, you don't get any idea of that. Even if it's a bad one or a good one or it's skewed the wrong way, which happens sometimes, still, you want something of that there. And one of the good things that E3 in person did was it allowed the media in to see these games, to demo these games, to give their first impressions of it, so that we knew what we were getting excited for. The biggest problem with these digital events, and we've talked about it before, is that they're just a train of trailers. Just one trailer after the other, and there's nothing behind it. Every demo you see is a vertical slice. They're not going to show you a bug. You're not going to see something break down. None of that's going to happen. Whereas with E3 Live and proper, you would have actual media people playing games, and even though they were vertical slices, often they would break down, and then they could tell us about it or something like that. So you cut off that. That's the best part of E3, is that thing, gauging what the game is going to be sort of situation.
And it goes back to as we've said before, it's controlling of the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
They want to, show what they want to show. And at an all digital event like this, I mean, sure, they could find a way by like issuing like download beta demo codes or whatever to outlets so that they can try builds of something that, would have been out there anyways.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they could absolutely get away with not doing anything like that and just having this is an extreme example, but having another Cyberpunk situation happen where
Mm-hmm.
everyone and their mother just sees a trailer, here's a bunch of promises, and then you go from there, and it's that hype beast that feeds itself.
Yep. I another thing that scares me about this whole situation is the digital event this year. To me, especially with them announcing the in-person in 2022 thing, feels like this whole thing is going to be a hype for 2022. Like we're going to see some games, but it's more going to be focused on getting us excited to have an E3 again next year. And that's going to be a colossal fucking waste of time with E3's name on it,
Ooh, sorry.
Oh, on Mike during the show. I'm going to give you a pass. I know you're stressed right now, but that one hurt.
No, yeah, no, that one was really bad. I was hoping you were going to keep talking for another 10 seconds.
You can usually bet on me to talk, that's for sure.
But no, if it turns out that this coming E3 is literally just one of those announcement trailers of an announcement that's going to be E3, like, don't get me wrong, I'm sure we're going to get some sort of vague teaser for a huge thing that's going to say, 2022. But if they just straight up come out and say, like, stay tuned for next year's E3 or something like that, I'm pretty sure I'm going to lose it. Well, because that's where everything's trending towards now. It's just no real solid information, because people are starting to see, like, oh, well, maybe they don't have anything to show right now. Maybe it's further along. And then they're like, well, crap, what do we tell them? Just like, tell them we have something to tell them later.
Right.
By God, we've done it.
we've cracked the code. I think that's my biggest problem with this is I don't see this as a thing. Like, I'm having a very hard time getting excited for it. And honestly, I was having a hard time getting excited for it anyway, just because it's another digital event. We have 5 of these. We have 12 of these a year. Like, easily one a month from someone, from somewhere. And I don't need another one in my life. Definitely not a huge one for more than one company,
Right.
I also think that, like, what are they going to show here? Like, if you're Xbox, if you're Nintendo, like, you're not going to show at E3 the stuff that you want to show. You're going to show them on your own show where you can control the narrative like we talked about. Like, especially in a digital event, you're not even offering, like, there was still a bonus to going to it because you interact with the media, you interact with the fans, you know what I mean? None of that is going to exist in a digital event. All the digital event is going to be is you showing your shit off. Well, if you're just showing your shit off, there's no reason for you to not just do it yourself.
Well, what gets me too is this entire year, well, this past 365 days year, as it were, we've been told, oh, well, COVID did this, COVID did that, we got to delay this, delay that. Well, I mean, yeah, okay, that's fine. But what about stuff that they were going to announce anyways? Like, I feel like these shows might end up being very, very light as a whole because they're not as far along as they thought they were going to be with this, that, and the other thing.
Right. You cap that off with the fact that all of these companies have already announced just about everything we know they're working on. What could possibly be at this show, Like, I just don't get, like, even from the big companies, like, Nintendo and Xbox, what could Nintendo show at E3? Or even more so, what would Nintendo show at E3? Because let's face it, Nintendo has the Directs. They wouldn't show a thing, like even when E3 was live, Nintendo was never really counted as one of the winners or losers because they have their treehouse, but that's like a drop in the bucket compared to their Directs. You know what I mean? Like, it was always, it had already come down to, like, Xbox or PlayStation. Now PlayStation's out, so you just have Xbox. Like what would Nintendo's not going to bring anything more to it that they're not going to show on a Direct. We just saw everything they've got. So the only thing they could really bring to the table at that point is news about Metroid or news about the second
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, second Breath of the Wild. And with all due respect to Metroid, I'm not trying to hate on Metroid when I say this. I don't think Metroid would be a big enough thing to, like, revitalize E3, you know, if that's what they're bringing to the table. And you have the same thing on the Xbox side. Like, there's nothing that Xbox has coming out that they are really going to be able to be like, or that they would show without having their own stuff. We know, I mean, other than maybe Halo Infinite stuff, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I would expect for Nintendo, I would expect there to be Breath of the Wild 2. In regard to Metroid, I think the only thing that they may show would be the Prime Trilogy port. I still don't think we're going to see anything of Prime 4.
Right, but the Prime Trilogy port is not going to be...
Oh, yeah, no.
Right, it's not going to be glass breaking or anything, you know?
I mean, it'd be great for me.
Yeah,
because I've literally been holding out for that for actually like a year.
Well, and I want to say again, not shitting on Metroid. There would be a lot of people who would be very happy about that. Like, and it would be great. I'm saying as far as like the big announcement, it's not like the Golden Bullet. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, no port is. You'd never like a port isn't that they, like, it's not going to be like nobody would base a show around a port, you know? Or if they did, it'd be an afterthought. And the only other thing that leaves us for this E3, other than Xbox and Nintendo, is the game companies. And the game companies have been doing this already. They've been doing this for the entirety of last year. They couldn't wait to start doing this. We get one from each one of them like every 3 months. So anything they're going to show here, we've already seen. Like, they're not going to show any, like, you're talking about little smidgets of gameplay in games we've already seen. It's not going to be that big a deal, you know? There's not going to be any world premiere announcements here is what I'm saying.
You know who I think might be the only one that would have something that's big? That's big enough. I think that Microsoft actually could come out of nowhere because they now have Bethesda. So coming out and being forthright and saying like, okay, they're announcing like, let's just throw something at the wall, Fallout 5. Okay. I mean, it just probably doesn't exist. But if they were like Fallout 5 and then at the very end it says like exclusive to Xbox or something like that, like
that'd be big news. I think it'd be a mistake, but you're right about that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it would be a mistake as an action, but like I feel like some sort of news like that, it's like
huge,
gaming news, but then it's like, you know, like big meta news because we've still not gotten 100% firm confirmation as to what it is that Microsoft plans on doing with Bethesda. That's the sort of stuff that I think that Microsoft would be able to leverage and bring to E3 to actually make waves.
Well, and I think yes and no. I think the announcement of Bethesda being exclusive in itself would be pretty big. I don't know that there's any games they can really show from Bethesda right now, honestly.
No.
I mean, they don't have... We're all 100% positive there isn't a Fallout 5, even though we use that as the example.
Yeah, that was just throwing something out there.
We know about Skyrim, but Tom Howard is on record as saying that is like a 2025 game or something like that.
Yeah.
And the only other thing that they have is Starfield. Now, I still think that's pretty far off too, honestly.
I don't know. I think Starfield might finally make an appearance this year.
Well, that would be a pretty big deal. But still, I think that by itself isn't a reason for E3. You know what I mean?
Oh, right.
Like it's not the ice cream Christmas that we want it to be. Like it just isn't like anymore. And especially if it's a digital event. I mean, it comes back to all these companies have been doing this already. All of them have been doing this already. They've already, like, you're not going to see anything from Ubisoft because Ubisoft's been doing forwards. We know everything they're releasing. The only thing you could see from Ubisoft is maybe some release dates for games that don't have them and maybe some footage. You know what I mean? Like, that's not worth it. That's like a PAX. That's like a games. Like, E3 was the premier place for game announcements. They don't have that even this year. So I don't know. I don't know. I think it's a big, fat waste of time right now, honestly.
It seems to be so far.
Yeah. All right, well, I think we've covered this. Why don't we go ahead and move on, man?
Sure.
All right.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, so that brings us to our second talking point. And we decided to talk about Epic because a new report, this is a story that was just put up on IGN, basically says that the Epic Game Store has spent $330 million of unrecoupable funds on competing with Steam, specifically in getting the rights to give away games for free that are better quality than the games that like Steam gives away for free. And honestly, I know a lot of people who are on Epic just for those free games, myself included. So that's a lot of money, Neil.
Yeah, I mean, that just goes back to Epic's issue with this entire thing. They just wanted to throw money at the Steam problem.
Right. You know what? I think what bothers me the most about it is while the free games thing is cool on Epic, and I do like a lot of the free games they've given. Oh, I'm sorry about that, anybody listening. I just totally punched the mic.
Oh.
Yeah, I did not mean to. You won't hear it because you're listening to me through a different mic, but they will hear it. And I apologize for that. It was a complete accident. Nonetheless, what I was saying is what bothers me the most about this $330 million is while the games that they've given away that are free are good, I think their quality, it's one of the reasons that I'm on there. I can't think of one that I still have on my hard drive. And on top of that, if they had put more money into their system and how it works, I think they would have garnered more people. Honestly, I think the throwing money at them problem is big. I think basically if they had stopped and they had thought, instead of let's just throw free games at people to take stuff away from Steam, why don't we actually build a better system? Yeah, I think that's their mistake there.
Yeah, one would have thought, but I think their big issue is the fact that they saw Steam as the king, and what GOG was the only other real name out there to my knowledge.
I mean, unless you consider Games Pass, but I don't necessarily consider it. It's kind of its own beast.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like they saw this and they were like, oh, wow, this is easy money. So they wanted to throw money at everything. And I mean, sure, they had benefits. Like they gave developers a bigger share of the sales of the games and everything,
right,
which attracted them to some degree. But at the same time, I mean, it's like any business who runs on, like buy one get one free specials and stuff like that. Like you just throw free money at people essentially and just hope that when those things don't exist that they'll come back and spend their money on it. And that's not always the case because like you said, they did not invest in their program. Like what was it? It took months before it even had like a shopping cart that you could put multiple games into. Like, are you kidding me? This is e-commerce 101.
Right. Well, and you have this interesting situation too, where like Steam. Okay, so one thing that people need to understand too is other than GOG and Steam and Epic, a lot of these companies have their own server, their own system for selling games. You can buy them directly off the company, basically. Like, you can buy most of Blizzard's stuff off blizz.net, even though you can also buy it off some other things. You can buy all of Ubisoft stuff off Ubisoft Connect. They have their own thing as well. The reason people buy directly off the Steam, is because Steam is a good working system, and they like the idea of going to one program to see all their games, right?
Yeah.
Now, Epic splinters that off, and they spend all their money on getting exclusivity to a lot of these games. One of them is Watchdogs Legion. Let me tell you what I went through with Watchdogs Legion, is I couldn't play the thing for a day because I pre-bought it on Epic Store, and Epic would not recognize that I had bought it. It allowed me to download it, would not allow me to play it. Just wouldn't let me do it because of a bug in Epic's system. Ubisoft Connect, however, which I did not want to download, did not want to splinter into another program, but I did, not only recognized that I purchased it on Epic Store, but allowed me to download it and play it through there. So, like, it kind of comes down to that, where, like, I'm so willing, like, your system's so buggy, I can't even play the exclusive games you spend so much money on. How much money do you think they spend to get Watchdogs Legion exclusively on the Epic Store? I would assume quite a bit. And you can't even play it? They're all going to end up on the Ubisoft Store, you know?
Right.
I think that's a big problem, is this system is kind of buggy, kind of messy. There's still a lot of features that aren't there that Steam has. And Steam has an ease of access that is unparalleled, and it's the reason that people keep coming back to Steam. Steam is good. I don't like Valve, and I don't like that Steam is uncontested. You know what I mean? Like, I think they do some evil shit, because any company that's alone in a space is going to do some evil shit. That being said, they have a quality-based system that is relatively easy to use and easy to understand, and the interface is not buggy. Boom, done, man. That's going to win you any war, anytime, over a system that, well, not a system, but a program that's super buggy, but just has exclusivity, you know?
Yeah, and the way that they threw money at buying exclusivity, too, is just beyond me.
Right.
Because you got to think of how they came in. They came in, like, everybody knew who, they know who Epic is, but they didn't know them as a game storefront. And then out of the blue, they're throwing money at any single developer that they can to put that up there, exclusively. What was it? The Metro games. Yeah. There was an issue with the Metro games when that came out.
Well, Borderlands 3 was exclusive for like a year to Epic.
I mean, it's one thing to have a platform exclusive to an actual platform. It's another to have something like PC that is specifically open, and that's one of the main pulls to it. Is there's no banner to fly under other than the PC master race.
Right.
But you have to do it on this launcher. Granted, again, competition's always good, between companies, but competition, that's not competition. That's just buying your way to victory, and nobody, sees that as victory. They see that as them just literally sighing, rolling their eyes, and installing another launcher because they have to.
Right.
They haven't done anything that sets them apart enough from Steam to make it be worth that money that they put in.
I agree completely. And I'll go one further. I want to point out, has Epic ever really been competition for Steam? I don't think it has. I think it was like a big screamy rich baby who just came on the scene and bought a bunch of stuff that you had to use them to play. That's what I think. I don't think Epic has ever really been a viable competitor for Steam. I think it looks that way because they make a lot of money off Fortnite. They have a lot of money to throw at the problem, and they were getting these exclusives. But really, when you break down what they have versus Steam, they don't have an infrastructure to deal with Steam. They don't have an infrastructure to dethrone them. They have a crappy program and some exclusives that you have to play on their system that may or may not be keeping them alive, but at this point, kind of looks like it's hurting them more than it's helping them. So they don't even really have that. So you have to wonder, you have to kind of like wonder and go back, like, when this first started, like a lot of people were like, it's great to have competition, but I don't want to like splinter my stuff and whatever, but and everybody was talking about the potential competition of Epic Launcher. I don't know that they were ever really viable. I think them being a viable thing was a trick, was an illusion, honestly, that they created with their money.
Right. And that's the thing. That's part of what I was alluding to earlier
Right.
is, you buy your way up to the top, but what have you done?
Right. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even feel like you bought your way up to the top. You bought an adjacent platform. You know what I mean? Or
Right.
like a helicopter that can keep you up there only as long as you have gas,
And like, what's their plan moving forward
Right.
too? Like, okay, they lost all this money. In no realm can I imagine that they're like, oh man, we lost, $300 some million. What are we going to do next year? Lose another 300 million more.
Right.
Like,
Right. That can't be the goal.
right. You can't push yourself to that level where you're competing with the front runner who is pretty much the guy until you got there, and then turn around and be like, okay, so now we need to change our business model because you're not built on anything but cash.
Right. That's exactly right. I think they need to tone down the free stuff they're giving out. But, I mean, even that puts them in a weird situation, because if they tone down the free stuff they're giving out, they're not going to keep anybody on their system long enough if they did fix the system.
Right.
They're just in a terrible spot where they've forced a bunch of people to come over and use their system for a very specific certain thing, which is either exclusivity or free games, and then they don't have any way to like maintain that. They don't have money. Obviously, they're spending too much money on other stuff. They don't have the capital to fix their system. So like, you're in this terrible situation where like, what do you do? What do you do? Like at this point, do you scrap Epic Launcher? Do you walk away from it? Do you keep it going the way it is and just have less thing and let it die a slow death? Like, what would you do with that,
I mean, I think they're in a position now with the deals that they've made for exclusivity and stuff. They have to keep throwing that money.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's the only thing they have. Like, anybody who is looking at those two systems, it's like, well, Steam's a great system, great place for my games, and Epic has some free stuff and some exclusives. Like, so you've set that precedent for yourself, and I don't know how they get out of this, honestly, especially with that whole lawsuit looming over their head.
Right. It's almost like, going somewhere like Applebee's. Like, full well what you're getting, but like, okay, it's cheaper. So like, you're settling in that regard, but you know what you're getting.
Right.
It's kind of like the Epic Launcher. Like, okay, well, I mean, they give us free stuff.
Right.
And like, okay, that's fine. And that's why people are there. But like, if one day they turned around and like completely stopped giving away the free stuff, or, just changed their payout structure for developers for putting their games for sale on the storefront, I think that's just, it'll be all downhill from there.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. It's kind of crazy. But you know what? I think we covered this. You want to move on to odds and ends?
Yeah.
All right.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, so that brings us to our third segment. That brings us to odds and ends. Basically, this is where we collect smaller news stories that don't necessarily deserve a full talking point, but we still want to tell you guys about it. We want to riff about it, something along those lines. So we collect them here, and we just say them here. I have 4. Neil has 2, so I'm going to go first. My first one is the most exciting one, Neil. I am so excited about this because we had talked about this a couple of podcasts ago, and I was maintaining like not getting too excited because the rumors about this have been around forever and there's never been anything concrete. Well, it came out today, the announced trailer for Streets of Rage 4, Mr. X's Nightmare. Oh! And it's so good. That trailer's so good, Neil. It looks like they redid the whole game in a lot of places. They're going to add 3 new characters. They only showed you the first one for this announced trailer. It's Estelle Aguirre, the crazy cop lady who only wears the bulletproof vest on her top. She's going to be added as a playable character you can play. They're adding new moves to all of the existing characters as well, plus new levels. I'm so excited about this, Neil. And we're going to get 2 more trailers at least, each one showcasing the 2 newer characters that are coming out.
You know what I'm really excited for with that DLC, though?
What?
Slapping motherfuckers with a swordfish.
Oh, I know! I forgot about that. The swordfish looks great. Yes.
You're just literally just holding a very large swordfish by its tail and using it as a weapon.
It definitely looked like with the base game, they were like, let's do a Streets of Rage game. Like, Streets of Rage can be ridiculous, but let's do a Streets of Rage game. And with this DLC, they're like, every fucking crazy idea that somebody wrote down on a piece of paper, we're sticking in this motherfucker. We're gonna have
what was it? Was it 2 that had the weird like alien level that was like technically a fun house, but like yeah, it had that weird alien level.
Yeah, we're all of a sudden you were in another dimension.
The series has dipped its toes into the weird.
Oh yeah, but it looks like it goes like it looks like it has time travel. It looks like it has space travel. At one point, I saw Blaze was holding a lightsaber, so it's gonna be fucking crazy this time around.
Oh yeah,
like they were like they dipped their toe again in with 4. Like you guys can watch us play 4 on Streets of Retro, but I mean there was a giant robot that you fight in it, like.
That's true.
They definitely dipped their toes in on 4, but I think for DLC, they were like just jumping off the dock, baby.
Yeah.
All right, so since I got 4, I guess I should do one more, and then you should do one, right?
Yeah.
Let me see. Okay, well, let's do a sad one then. It has been announced that Nintendo Switch, while they're doing fine for right now, that towards the end of 2021 they are going to be suffering from the same semiconductor shortage that every PC and system on the planet is suffering from, which just want to point out, all the more reason we are not going to see a Switch Pro anytime soon.
I'm not surprised at all in the slightest.
Yeah, I mean, listen, out there, anybody, if you're on the fence about getting a Switch and you think you're going to lean into getting it, do it right now. Because if what happens with the Switch is the same as what's happened with the graphics cards and the consoles, you're not going to be able to see a Switch for about a year after it hits, and unless you want to pay like $2,000 to a scalper.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, go to Target right now and buy a Switch because they're going to be gone. Especially with this news story coming out, because everybody else is thinking the exact same thing I'm saying into this mic right now.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess I will go with one of mine. Apparently there's a rumor floating around that there is a Horizon Zero Dawn movie in the works.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Well, I mean, outside of the rumor, there's no solid evidence available. That said, Sony has also been ramping up their TV and movie production as of late. So I would not be surprised.
Okay. I hope that never happens. I'm not going to lie. I think that story was beautifully told in the game. I think they did the game cinematically. I don't think there's anything you'll gain from making everybody live action and cutting it down to 2 hours.
Yeah, I mean, especially given, in the beginning of Horizon, you have the whole like growing up training montage.
Right.
So,
Right.
and that the whole game pretty much takes a good span of time, I would imagine, given the events that happen. So you
Yeah.
can't exactly jam that all unless it's one of those story within the universes BS, which I'm not a fan of.
Or they think they're going to be as well, I would be more okay with the story within the universe. I've gone on record with that. I don't think you can do. I don't think it's a good idea to do the characters that somebody plays in a game, because even if the character has all their lines mapped out, the person who played the character identifies that character with themselves. So if the character on screen is different, they're immediately going to feel that disconnection. Like I would much rather see some other character in Horizon hunting monsters or whatever on their own story than see them try and do Aloy's story again in a smaller, condensed version that does not work in any way, shape, or form. Much rather see it in a like another story out of that universe. That being said, they could be setting it up for like a trilogy if they think it's going to do really good, because there are some video game movies that are getting some traction right now, but I hope that's not the case either. I don't want a trilogy of this. I don't want it in movies. Leave it alone.
Yeah, I don't know. I would want it to be good, but I know in my heart it wouldn't be, just because it's been tried so many times and it's just not worked very well with video game movies. I mean, there's some that do, like you said, gain some traction to them, but even still, if they knock it out of the park with the first one, usually they screw up the second.
Yeah. A slight digression. Are you going to watch the Mortal Kombat movie on the 23rd?
I would love nothing more. It just depends on where life has us.
Yeah.
But I originally wanted to get HBO Max to see that. I wanted to see that in the Snyder Cut.
No, I don't want to see the Snyder Cut. I don't need to see a 4-hour movie of that. I just don't. I don't. I'm so done with that stuff. I do want to see the Mortal Kombat one. I don't know why, but I do. I don't like those games, so I don't know that I'm even going to enjoy it, but I'm definitely going to be watching that one on my own.
Yeah.
All right, so next one I want to announce is a pretty big deal, honestly. Games Pass has secured for the first time ever an originally Sony exclusive. I know it's a sports game, so a lot of our fans are going to be like, whatever, how do you sports ball? But RBI 2021 was originally a Sony exclusive. It was announced that RBI 2021 was the end of their long-running contract with Sony, which is why you don't have that game on the Xbox, so that RBI 2022 would most likely be on Xbox and all systems. Nonetheless, though, they actually went one further, and the minute their deal expired, they put it on Xbox into Games Pass. That's kind of a big FU to Sony and a big win for Xbox, even though we don't get it. I mean, if I was going to play a sports game, it certainly wouldn't be a baseball game. Still, I think that's a huge deal.
I think it just comes down to Microsoft, and Microsoft just said, do baseball.
Do baseball?
Microsoft just said, do baseball, and they did.
They did baseball. I think that this is a bit... I think this is a... I don't think that when Sony, the deal ended, they ever thought that they would go back and put 2021 on Xbox. I don't think they ever considered that a possibility. But
yeah, no, I think that kind of I think that might have hit Sony just by surprise as well.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, it is just a baseball game, but I mean, at the end of the day, it technically wasn't exclusive.
Right.
But that also said the exclusivity contract ran out. So does that say more for the fact that the contract ran out and they just didn't want to be with Sony anymore, or they wanted to jump off, and go to something like Games Pass.
Well, it has already been said that they're not exclusive to Xbox, but there was no. The way the story had worked before was like Sony had bought out RBI Baseball basically, and it was this whole like weird contentious term in a contract where basically they could only make RBI Baseball for Sony PlayStation. Like they could only make it for that, which is why there's been no baseball games on Xbox. And even though it is just a baseball game, I mean, sports games are huge, especially like the sports are huge. It gets almost every one of the casual players out there usually is casual because of either a shooter or a sports game, That being said, their exclusivity deal ended, which meant that RBI Baseball going forward could put their games on other systems. What I think is funny is that news came out not more than like 4 or 5 months ago, which means that like 100% RBI Baseball was working on an interface for Xbox long before the exclusivity deal worked, and putting it into Games Pass is huge. Like that's big. Like people who have Games Pass can play a game that was exclusive to Sony, not more than was exclusive to Sony last month. Like that's crazy.
That's true.
Like that's a big deal. That's a big win for Xbox. But you can go ahead with your next one.
All right. So apparently there is also a Last of Us Part 2 remake in development at Naughty Dog for the PS5. Not exactly surprised on that one because they did the same thing with The Last of Us between the PS3 and the PS4. But it was also reported as well that a Days Gone 2 got pitched at Sony, and they very much said no.
Yeah, I
that
heard
game,
that. Yeah,
that game was not good. I can't remember if I had mentioned our Chronicle with that game.
No, you've never mentioned your Chronicle with that game. I knew that there was Chronicles with that game. I didn't even know you had that game.
Yeah, so Kayla actually got a digital copy of it for free from work, and we were like, great, like it was launch. It was given at launch for free. So we downloaded it, and it was the deluxe edition too, so it came with all this other stuff. I had gone to work for the day. I came back, and I asked how it was, and she said it wasn't good, and it was very hard. And at first I was like, she said she couldn't even get through the tutorial. I was like, I don't know about all that. I was like, because me being, me, I'm just like, there's no way it's that hard. It's that hard. I mean, I seriously, it's like a motorcycle chase scene, and the motorcycle handles like ass. You get through like maybe a whole grand 2-3 minutes on this motorcycle, and then they start like throwing stuff at you, and like if you wreck the motorcycle at all, the person you're chasing gets away, so then you have to start over. This is how the game starts. I've never seen beyond that.
I am done.
Yeah, it was very much, and I am done.
That's funny. Okay, so that was it for you, right?
Yeah, that was it.
All right. So WWE 2K22 was announced during WrestleMania last night. They also showed a small snippet of gameplay that was from alpha footage. I am really interested in this for a couple of reasons. First of all, I have a couple of WWE 2K games. I don't know how to play them. I want to say that up front. I don't use them for that. I use them to obviously capture footage for OMGW, which is all done with the in-game AI. And I also use them for like just my own viewing pleasure. Like there's universe modes, I just let the AI play out. I literally don't know how to play a match in that game. So that being said, I'm very interested to see what they do with 2K22 because so I'm going to have to update again at some point and remake every character in OMGW, which is I'm not looking forward to. And I'm wondering if this is going to be the one, and how many features they'll put in for the content creators like myself, which they've done that with previous systems. But the other question is, did they have enough time to not make a broken, shitty-ass game?
Yeah, I remember when the last one came out. It was
2K20.
basically... It was 2K20, yeah.
They
20?
canceled 2K21 because of 2K20. Instead, they released this like arcadey game called like Battlegrounds, where you could
I remember that.
throw wrestlers into alligators and stuff. It was really stupid and got terrible reviews as well. But that was like the in between whatever. But they canceled 2K21 to work on 2K2022 so that it could be better. They didn't actually say 2K2022. They just said 2K21 is canceled. We'll work on another one in the future. So there was a lot of speculation as to whether there was going to be a 2K 2022 or not. It has been announced there is going to be one, and I got to wonder if one extra year off is enough to fix everything that was fucking wrong with 2K20.
Well, I mean, we're starting to see this now with annualized franchises. You know, Assassin's Creed was the big one that really did it. I'm still astounded that the Call of Duty games can come out annualized. I mean, they have 3 whole studios working on them at any given time. So, I mean, I guess there's that.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I think the annualized franchises are gonna start going by the wayside because, you know, games is hard.
Well, and can I tell you what bothers me the most about annualized franchise in like areas like this? Like, first of all, WWE should never be annualized because of what goes into a WWE game. Because, like, with a sports game, and I'm not fighting for annualization of anything, but with a sports game, you're simulating the sport in its activity. You're putting a little bit into it, but you're not putting, like WWE has tons of story in it and content that would make it like an actual game. You know what I mean? Not like 2 hours of story like Call of Duty, like a ton of stuff in it. I feel like it's too big a game to be annualized. In addition, I don't think these games should be annualized. I know money, $60 every year. I get it. But at the same time, you make these games, you get them shittier, you get diminishing returns. What I would do is make one really solid and then just update it for so many years like Ubisoft does, and just every so often charge people for it, you know? Yeah. Like charge them for like a wrestler pack, charge them for like an arena pack, and just slowly update stuff. Charge them for a story pack and just add to the same game. Because, and I know a lot of people out there are like rolling their eyes at microtransactions. Okay, I get what you're saying. It's frustrating, but that's better than them releasing a half-assed shitty game that drops half the features, adds some new features you don't care about, adds some features you like, but they're going to drop that next year. You know what I mean? Like, instead, you've got a standardized product that you can just add to and still get a sustained revenue stream from.
Yeah, exactly. I've never understood why they have to do that sort of. In fact, what was it? It was a FIFA game that they put onto the Switch for the new version, but it wasn't actually a new version of it, and it was so bad that all of the signage and everything just kind of stayed the same. Like, this is what we're looking at here, to where
it even had a disclaimer that said it was the same game, just with a different year attached to it.
Yeah, this is where we're at now, where we have the annualized games coming out and we can't keep up with them. So corners are getting cut, and, you know, it's just being super shady with stuff like with the FIFA thing. I don't know. I do think a DLC sort of way would be the way to go, because then too, you could even have all the versions installed and flick a switch if you like, you know, what version more so. Weirdly enough, Street Fighter did that. I don't know if they did it in 5, but in 4 they did that. So they have the yearly updates And, of course, normally people play on, the most recent update,
Mm-hmm.
but you can actually go into the settings and change back to previous updates because the system changed a little bit from
Right.
there. Why can't something like that be implemented moving forward into other games?
Well, and I want to point something else out that you would know with the 2K games. One of the most irritating things is they shut down the servers sometimes less than a year after the game comes out. So because the next one comes out, and that is insidious and shitty in my opinion. Like you can't play 2K16 online. You can play the game, you cannot play it online with your friends because they shut the servers down. You can't play 2K. Well, you can play 2K19 because they kind of left it up after the mess with 2K20, but you can't play 2K18 online. Like that kind of stuff would get erased too, because you could just have this thing that everybody can be on and you just add to it and they can play with what they want on it. Instead of like the other thing that's problem with the WWE stuff is every time they do it, they try and like redefine a lot of the systems. Like redefine what the game is every time, and you can't do that in something like this. Like Madden doesn't redefine what it is every time. It adds a new couple of systems to the gameplay, and it adds new rosters and a couple of new systems to the like how you play it, WWE doesn't do that. Like every time they come out, they like completely redefine like sometimes the entirety of the gameplay. Plus, one of the big problems with 2K20 is they had handed it to a new studio. Ukes walked away from it 4 months before it came out. Ukes had been the people who had developed like literally every WWE 2K for the last like however many years. So you had a new studio on it. Is 2 years enough for that new studio to get their shit together,
Right.
So I don't know. I'd much rather have, here's WWE, and then we're going to sell you stuff every so often. You know what I mean? You want new rosters? Here's some new stuff. You want some new cosmetics? Here's how much it is. You want some new arenas? Here's how much it is. Still insidious, still shitty, but at least everybody has a uniformed way of playing instead of just this insanity,
Yeah.
All right, well, that was my last odds and ends. You want to go to Horrible Arena?
Sure.
All right.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, so that brings us to the end of the show, the moment you've all been waiting for, the main event. The Horrible Arena. What is the Horrible Arena if you've never watched or listened more? Well, first of all, please watch and listen more. The Horrible Arena is where us, the co-hosts, will pitch to you guys, the fans, a game based on pre-existing criteria. If it's a guest, we pitch based on the guest. A guest suggestion. If not, we take turns picking that criteria, and then we will pitch you the title of the game, the developer of that game, and then what the game will be in the end. And then you guys get to take to all the places and tell us which one you would spend your hard-earned money on if you had to choose. Now, last week it was my turn to choose the pre-existing criteria. I chose a different genre for an existing IP. So, like, something new for an IP that has already done. So if it's a first-person shooter, you can't pitch a first-person shooter game, but with the same IP, you have to pitch that game. So, Quantum Coin was tossed. Neil won it again. He gets to go first. Neil, take it away.
All right. So I actually, think that mine might possibly be cheating to some degree, but we'll see at the end of it.
Well, the judges are the fans, so...
Yeah. So my game will be called Project Super Smash Kart, and it's going to be done by Nintendo. So we all know and love Smash Brothers for the crazy crossover brawling, but what if instead of fighting, it were a kart racer? Super Smash Kart is a multiplayer kart racer where beloved Nintendo icons and even those from other non-Nintendo franchises meet up and race through tracks across multiple different franchises, opening up the possibilities to having even more than just Mario characters in a Nintendo kart racer. Tracks will have randomized weapons from Smash games available to pick up and use during the race, and they, of course, will affect the progress of the race by hindering your opponents or helping you. but they could also have another purpose. Being a Smash game, each racer would have a damage percentage. And as they take more damage, the items used against and hits from other kart racers, from karts colliding, will move your character more and more, eventually leading them to be knocked off the course. This leads me into a different potential for game modes. There's a standard race mode, which is set for a set number of laps, and that's it. There's a stock mode where the entire goal is to take out all of your opponents until they have no extra stock left. Or a pure, plain and simple battle mode taking place in an arena with no other goal but to knock everyone else off the play area in your kart. Of course, the game would also feature team races where people could all team up and race as a team or battle as an entire group. And the game, of course, would have a very rich online multiplayer functionality with matchmaking and private lobbies as well. So that is my game, Super Smash Kart.
Interesting. I like that pitch, man. I like it.
Yeah, I don't know if it technically counts because Smash is an IP, but it's not.
I think you're okay, but it's always in the hands of the people voting, right?
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting that we both picked Nintendo IPs.
Oh.
Yes, mine is definitely Nintendo. So here we go. Hold on. Let me just belch real quick so I don't have to do that on mic. Okay, here we go. Mine is developed by Nintendo, and it will be called Battle for the Mushroom Kingdom. So, in the Mushroom Kingdom, a great threat appears. Mario, Princess Peach, and Bowser have to unite to actually take out this threat. This is the prologue. They manage to deal with the threat. However, in the process of it, all three of them vanish. Don't know what happened to them. They are missing. This leaves the Throne of Power in the Mushroom Kingdom and the Throne of Power in the Land of the Koopas well open to have a seat. At this point, great leaders start to partition off and build their own armies to fight for the thrones. So, this will be a tactical game, tactical war-based game, in which you will pick a general. He leads certain troops, and then you get to actually amass and build your forces. You get to build out units, and you also get to mine power-ups, different nodes of power-ups. When you go into a battle for a section or area of the Mushroom Kingdom or King Koopa's land, basically that section will have a certain number of resources that you'll gain from actually controlling it. What are resources? Resources are power-ups, and the actual battle itself are 3D mapped out battles where you can actually put units together and go after them. But what's cool about this is you can actually give them mushrooms. Might make them grow big. Depending on who they are, it might make them grow big, might give them extra leaping abilities, and the power-ups will react differently with each different type of troop. So you can have one general will be King Boo. He gets all the undead characters. He gets the dry bones. He gets the normal Boos, all that kind of thing. The ones that punch, I can't remember what they're called offhand, but the powers might interact different. The power-ups might interact differently with their forces than, say, Toad's forces. That's right. He's got all the Mushroom Boys on his side. You've also got the Dream King and all the Shy Guys with the Birdos and all those sorts of things. Plus, you've got the Koopa Lands, and you've got every one of those Koopa kids is also vying for a throne at some point. And you can control all of those things. So then you're trying to actually do this interesting tactic-based war, which it's kind of family-friendly, but at the same time, it brings this new level to the actual battles where the power-ups themselves actually control how you fight. The fights actually take place more like what the platforming is. You have to jump on people's heads or knock them out to actually like take them down. Instead of like your standard like cannons and ballistas, you're actually power-up managing your armies in the moment. even more interesting is you can hire other generals or find them as part of the story and bring them on board. Wario and Waluigi, they're not beholden to any generals or enemies, so maybe you have to do a special task to get them on your force, which they can then lead armies in a certain special way to give you help and fight your battles. Each army would also have their own special ability. Obviously, the Boo's ability would be the best in moving because they're intangible, whereas Bowser has the biggest artillery forces with their big airships, so they might get a barrage strike at any point during the battle. Mushroom Lamb might have the best support, the best lasting survivability. It just brings so many interesting things to it. And I think that Mario, one of the things that they've never done is this heavy tactic war game. And I know that Mario versus Rabbids was like more tactical, but I mean like a tactical war game. But you have all these cool troops and different troop ideas to it. I think you could really bring in some like more hardcore players. Even though the aesthetic would be cutesy, you could really have some cool techniques to it that would bring in some of those kind of people who like play Wargrave or the old Wargroove or the old Shining Force, while you could still keep the kids in and keeping it simple and light and fun. It would breathe a little bit of new life into the Mario franchise, which has just always been basically a platformer. I mean, there are some new things to it, but honestly, Mario's the best when it does have a new thing, when it has some new technique or system to it. So that's my game, Battle for the Mushroom Kingdom. It's taking on Project Smash Kart, and you guys get to choose. You get to pick, but I'm gonna say right now, we're not gonna do criteria because Neil has asked for next week off. He is going to get it, which means there will be no Horrible Arena next week. So we're not going to do criteria, buddy, but we'll get back to that at some point.
Alrighty.
All right. We'll be right back to tell you all the places you could talk to us.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, so that brings us to the end of the show and the shameless self-promotion that brings with it. Neil, you got anything you want to pitch, buddy?
Well, I don't have anything personally, but I gotta tell you, we just recorded, a lot of you know, Halo Infinite War. It was really fun. We had a blast. In fact, my wife even said she played 2 with all of us, and she had said she really had a great time with it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that was wonderful to hear that that she enjoyed it too. So yeah, it was really fun. Apparently I might be better at Halo than I thought I was.
You didn't actually do that good the first time we played. The first Halo Infinite War, you didn't actually do that good. This one, you kicked butt.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I do randomly get these times whenever I play Halo games where like I just have a really good streak.
Right.
But
I've had those
yeah.
too. Yeah, just a tail end on that will premiere this Tuesday. If you're listening to this, it's going to premiere today at 1 p.m. And if you're watching this on YouTube, it premiered yesterday, so go check it out. We just play, it's 5 episodes, it's going to be 5 weeks, and we play through a bunch of multiplayer Halo 2. And we had a ton of people come in and help us, including your wife, Philbilly330's in it, a bunch of other people from the community. It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Very much.
I want to plug for Neil, since he does not always follow this show, but he voices characters in it. He has a lot of voice work in the OMGW that came out Monday. If you're listening to this yesterday, if you're watching this 2 days ago, so please, I know I always promote OMGW anyway, but if you want to hear Neil do one hell of a job following my growly voice, you can check that out because he has a back and forth with Hard Rock that I am very proud of editing. So that's out, and of course, please check out OMGW anyway. So many people worked on it this year. I had a hard time putting the credits together at the end of the year. It just like everybody put something into it, and it's just, that's why it's so special to me, is even though I do a ton of work for it, myself and Phil Billy also does a good amount of work for it. Everybody in the community just about chipped in. and like lended a voice here and there. And it's just so nice how many people came out this season to do it, and it's really, really coming together. So please check that out. Please check that out. I don't think there's anything else special to plug there, man, other than our finale of Halo Infinite Road Season 2 comes out this Thursday.
Oh, it does.
It does indeed. This is the finale of Season 2. It's special and it's long because we got through one mission in like 12 minutes somehow, even though everyone has taken us like 30.
Right.
But we got through one real fast, so we just decided to just do it all. So, yeah, we do. It's like one big 42-minute episode to wrap Season 2. We're going to take a week off, probably be back with Season 3 after that. Yeah, that's it. So you guys can check us out on Facebook, at OldManGamingDH, on Twitter, at OldManGaming9. You can join our Discord. Links in the description below. Influence this and all of our shows from there. And guys, gals, as long as you keep watching and listening, we will keep making them. And we will see you next week.
I always just feel sad after I eat McDonald's. For a place that has a Happy Meal, I don't know. And like every time I've gone to McDonald's too, I normally get like a quarter pounder with bacon on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what it is. Like I'm assuming that those burgers are real burgers and not some frozen patties, or at least real meat to some degree. Because like the last 3 times I've had McDonald's burgers, they've actually like had a little bit of blood in them.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, that's not good. I think you're eating person or something. Like that's not.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Honestly, with McDonald's, I never get anything fancy. It's just double cheeseburgers and fries. Period. Like that's all I want. Maybe some nuggets every once in a while, but double cheeseburgers and fries, done. And a Coke, I'm good. I don't need like any time I'm like I'm gonna try a chicken sandwich. I'm like, oh my god, this tasted bad. And the shit is coming out of my dick. It's terrible. But if it's just double cheeseburger and fry, I'm good. I don't know why.
But you know what? You cannot not get that McDonald's Coke.
No, you can't. McDonald's Coke is always great. I love McDonald's Coke.
Yeah. It's its own thing. It's its own brand of Coca-Cola.
Since we're on fast food, I want to talk about one other phenomenon with fast food, specifically Taco Bell. Taco Bell. Here's the phenomenon that I want to talk about. I want to see if you've experienced this, because me and Melissa experience this every time. Taco Bell, like when we decide to go to Taco Bell, we're like, yes, this is going to be the best food ever. We will bring Taco Bell home, so excited to eat it. The smell, it's intoxicating. But the minute you are fucking done with it, it is the grossest smell you've ever smelled in your life. It will make you sick, like, immediately. Like, when I am done eating Taco Bell, all of it has to exit the room as soon as humanly possible.
I can't say as we've experienced that one, but what I can say, though, is 2 things. One, if you get any sort of hard-shelled taco, no matter what, it's already broken.
Yes.
No matter what. What, it's always broken.
I agree with that one.
I used to get the fiery Doritos Loco tacos when they had those still on the menu. And I don't do the crunchy hard tacos usually, but those are just so good. Every single time that shell was already shattered. It's like somebody just like threw it at a wall and then put it in the bag. But then also anything that's got any sort of like crunchy component to it, like I get it, after a while, if it's in a hot steamy bag, it's going to start not being so crunchy anymore. But you have got to eat it within 5 minutes.
Immediately.
There's been times where like we've literally come home, I'll sit it down on the 'counter and we take the dog out and settle, maybe 5-10 minutes tops, come downstairs and it's just a mush taco.
Oh, I am completely with you. We do nachos. We do nachos Bo Grandes every time. I'm literally like hurling it at my wife as soon as I bring it in the house. I'm like, eat that shit. It was a long line. Eat that shit now.